Hello and welcome to a session of Chainlink Q&A. Today we are very pleased to be joined by Miles Austin, the CEO of Hyphen. Welcome to the webinar, Miles.
Hey, thank you, William. Good to see you again. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I am. Thank you. It's kind of crazy days, but we're getting back to life where people are on the road a lot. I'm on the road right now, and it's reminiscent of the old days where you're running around trying to do 10 different things.
I know what you mean. It's busy month of traveling for myself, so it's good to finally be able to get back into the world and be able to see some people. And
Yeah, it's so much better, I think, to tell the story in person. I just find it a lot more refreshing. So for our viewers today, it would be great if you could kick us off by telling us a little bit about Hyphen, specifically, how it works and what makes it so special.
Yeah, absolutely. Very short statement. Hyphen's focus is really to bring validated real-world information into markets that need it. So Hyphen's working to close an important gap. And what is that gap exactly? The gap that exists is really between atmospheric agencies and the actual measurements of what's going on with greenhouse gases and ODS in the atmosphere, and then the gap to what companies generate with the emissions and the disclosures and the reportings of those emissions. As you see, the climate gases around the atmosphere and in the world are going up, yet the corporate activities claim that they are producing less emissions. So there's a gap there, and there's a lot of gray area around that. So we're really looking to accurately measure and assess that gap, and make that widely available to any interested parties. I think that on this subject, it's important to note that there's not necessarily a good guy or a bad guy. There's never been an intention for this gap. I think the gap is really the difference between the increase in climate gases in the atmosphere and the ocean as well, and then what the companies are reporting, as I mentioned. And as we work with various different agencies, we can really accurately measure that, as well as with corporations, and begin to compare and contrast those. What makes us special and unique, I would have to say, is definitely our team and our network. We have a variety of technical experts, climate experts, finance and monetary policy experts. And I think it's extremely important, and something I care deeply about bringing all of these people together at the same table, and having a lot of these like-minded individuals tying together the actual science of what's going on with the commercial realities and the public policy. And this combination is what really enables us to be able to support new financial services for capital markets.
That's great. So not to do a shameless plug here, but I'd love to know how Chainlink kind of fits directly into that part of your workflow, and where it is that's a tech like Chainlink can be useful in that model.
Yeah, absolutely. So as our CTO, Terry Gilligan, says, Chainlink is a very important cornerstone to us. It's really vital to what we do and how we operate. I think that in the EU, the ECB has been directly calling for DLT and smart contracts to help with emissions reporting and to make these processes automated and more efficient. So we work closely with these agencies, and the example is with ICOS, the Integrated Carbon Observation System, and we're providing and managing their atmospheric monitoring data via the Hyphen Oracle network. And this enables us to, be able to gather all this data from various different sensors and satellite devices all over the globe, be able to take all this data in a tamper-proof, secure framework, and validate that data and make it accessible to any third parties that are interested in near real time. And, with Chainlink, it's obviously a really provides the ability to verify the data in that tamper-proof framework. Not to mention just the seamless ability to collect and aggregate this data from thousands of different devices around the world, and even in satellites and in the ocean.
Interesting. So, I mean, nitrous oxide is not something that I think a lot of people talk about. Carbon dioxide, of course, is the thing. I know that you're not necessarily just nitrous oxide specialists. You can do this with any gas, but I'm really curious what that state of that market looks like today, right? So as you mentioned, I guess you say there's a gap. Is there really any other solution that's trying to fill said gap? Is anyone even aware of the gap? I'm just what does the market look like today, and why is it such an exciting, I guess, opportunity for you to try and fill said hole?
Yeah, absolutely. So with N2O, it's it is sort of the forgotten gas. It's something that has been talked about for years among the scientists and different atmospheric agencies, but it's something that has never really gotten that public attention and that spotlight, such as things like carbon and now methane. I would say, we're definitely the first to begin to bring this information into a market context. And as N2O is, it's a climate gas, and it's one of the three main gases managed by the Paris Climate Accord, but it's been completely overlooked by the public. And what brings forward this really unique opportunity with N2O is it really brings the ability to build a bridge between the Montreal Protocol and the Paris Climate Accord, as N2O is both an ODS, which fits in with the Montreal Protocol, and is also a greenhouse gas emission, which fits with the Paris Climate Accord. And of course, don't take my word for it. Do a lot of research and dig into it. But N2O is something that I think will begin to gain a lot more attention in the future.
And is there any reporting happening? So this solution is going to allow for this reporting, this data to come on chain. Is there any other repository, or is this just not being done today?
Yeah. So to my surprise, I think it's something where, again, Chainlink fits in very well with, right? So there's all of these beautiful databases and various different agencies collecting and measuring and monitoring these gases, especially N2O, carbon, and methane. But again, a lot of the times that this data is siloed off and it's stuck there, and it's occasionally shared once a year or among different science agencies or specific firms. But there's not really this round, transparent table for anybody to be able to pull a seat up to and be able to access this data and be able to have this data in near real time. And so we're excited to be able to make this data available through the Chainlink network so that any interested parties can be able to access this data in near real time instead of once a year or once a quarter.
That's great. So switching gears a little bit, one of my favorite questions that I always like to think about is kind of I guess it's why blockchain. Everybody, and it's such a hot word, and everyone wants to say they're doing things on blockchain. They want to might help to raise money in some capacities, and then certain percentage of these projects, you really listen and you think to yourself, gosh, I'm just not really sure why you'd want to use a blockchain to do that, and in fact, it might actually be a hindrance. So why is blockchain the right solution for measuring, monitoring, validating greenhouse gases?
Yeah. I'm really glad you brought up this question. This is something that I think about all the time, and it's something that really the passion comes out in me. So in the most simple sense, it really comes down to, transparency, but also accountability. And I think that the low hanging fruit on this topic is really greenwashing. And when it comes to greenwashing, I think it's very important to note that much of the greenwashing that takes place around the world is something that is not intentional. But it's happening really as a result of the lack of valid real world information being made available in near real time. And
let's just stop for 1 second. And can you please just define greenwashing for the audience, myself included? And then can you tell, I want to learn more about it, but I actually don't think I know exactly what you mean by the term.
Absolutely. So as an example, if I'm a corporation and I say, okay, I am, doing green, I'm green because, well, why? My t-shirt says I'm green. So a lot of the time, a lot of this data is being self-reported or is being estimated and calculated based off of old models that are outdated. And so due to a lot of these models being outdated and a lot of self-reporting, it becomes very blurry and fuzzy. And it's really hard for a corporation to 100% know with certainty that what they're claiming they're doing is what's actually taking place. And so the greenwashing aspect is when they say they're doing green things, but it turns out they're not being green. And then throughout that, there's various different benefits that they get for being more green. But there's a lack of transparency there if they actually are as green as they say they are. That being said, to my point of it's not intentional, I truly believe that these corporations, they're not purposely lying. And a lot of them aren't lying, but due to the lack of really infrastructure in place, it makes it extremely difficult for them to not only have a purely realistic understanding of what's going on in their operations and their supply chains, but to be able to actually prove that to third parties and to regulators.
That's fantastic. So the blockchain is a public forum, I guess, right, where that can happen. The Chainlink network is, I guess, that third party validated step by which the information can be verified and validated. And then final hyphen stamp, of validity, I guess, is what people can then use. I don't want to get too much into the commercials of it, but I'm curious. So this is a are you in fact just you're validating levels? It's specific lat longs or specific, is it the company level information or is it geography based? Like
Yeah.
here's what
So
nitrous oxide is it this particular lat long or what is it the output?
yeah. So great question. We're actually doing both, and both
Okay.
really work well together. So with the agencies, we really have a very accurate understanding of what exactly is going on in the atmosphere around the world and in the oceans. And that's really important to be able to calculate that down to each nation, state, country, et cetera. Then on the corporate side, we work specifically with corporate partners. Some of those supply chains are much more complex than others. So as you can see on our website, our initial focuses are more in the energy sector, oil and gas, food and agribusiness, due to that there's actually the physical infrastructure in place to be able to have these machine-to-machine frameworks to be able to accurately collect their emissions and track that. What's really interesting on this topic too is we see so many things, especially coming out of COP26, with these ambitious climate goals and commitments. We'll reach X, Y, and Z by 2030, and then by 2050. But it's really important to be able to accurately establish baselines for corporations so that they can measure and say, this is what our baseline is today. And now that we accurately know that, we can work towards improving this, and we can measure that, and we can prove that and share that to any third parties or regulatory bodies, et cetera. The other thing I just want to mention on that is with these ambitious climate goals, not only from corporations, but from nation states, is that a lot of the time this data is shared once a year. So, with the recent IPCC report, it really was spooky and it caught a lot of attention for a couple of weeks here and there. But the matter is that this is shared once a year. And so our goal is to be able to make this data available to any interested parties, whether that's weekly, monthly, or in their preferred time, in their preferred formats. And going beyond the capital markets and things, but being able to make this available to more universities, research individuals, and people that really have the passion or want to build their own projects and their own products built off of this data. So making that just accessible to them in near real time.
That's great. That's excellent. So what's next? I mean, it sounds like obviously this is a huge win. So, this sounds like a data set that is not very well tracked today. Moving it into the blockchain is going to open it up for developers to do whatever they need to do. It's going to open up a lot of new business cases for yourself. Where do you go from there?
Yeah. So we have a lot of exciting things coming out this year. So definitely stay tuned. We'll have a lot of announcements. With the gases, the agency we work closely with the closest with at the moment is ICOs. And as probably a lot of the Chainlink community has seen, N2O is available now on the Hyphen Oracle network. Very soon, we will also make available carbon dioxide and methane, not only in the atmosphere, but also in the oceans. And the oceans are really important because carbon, the largest storage of carbon is actually the ocean. So it's really important to have an accurate understanding and assess how much CO2 can the ocean really hold and continue to store. Because all of these things are more factors into these models that are established to be able to really calculate where we're heading as an Earth with our environment. So, throughout the year, we'll definitely be sharing many more announcements. A lot of this work is actually being led by our Chief Climate Officer, David Grimes, who is the past president of the WMO. For those of you who don't know what the WMO is, that's the World Meteorological Organization, which is based in Geneva, which is the parent company actually of the IPCC. So it's one of the key agencies in the United Nations. So we're extremely excited to be able to have a wonderful team that's also passionate to be able to really move things forward and be a leader in this space.
Apologies, I didn't mean to giggle when you were announcing him. I was just thinking to myself, every single group I've ever heard that starts with world anything seems to be in Geneva. That's
yeah.
A picture walking through the streets and it's just world this, world that, building after building.
I would completely agree. It always fascinates me with how much is concentrated in Switzerland. It's such a small place, but there's so much going on here. Yeah. Not only with all these world things and agencies, but in the DLT space, it's a really unique place to be right now.
And I seem to remember from our previous conversation that, in fact, you are findable on the streets of Switzerland as well, right? Is that where
Yes.
how do we find you? Do we fly? We get in this? We go meet you guys in Switzerland. What's the best way to
You can't
connect
find
with you?
us. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, so we're based in Switzerland. We're in Zug and in Basel, Switzerland. That being said, to be able to keep up to date, see what we're doing, Hyphen has a Twitter. It's just at _AG. And then our website is www.hyphen.earth. And we'll be sharing lots of content, lots of updates, and there's plenty of announcements around the corner.
That's fantastic. Well, listen, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I think it's because I want to bring you back when we get those other announcements, like you said, later this year. So let's go ahead and leave it there. Thank you so much for all of this important work that you're doing. It really is humbling to hear these use cases. It's humbling to hear the dreams of our user community, and completely outside the box, way beyond what we think that we would be able to accomplish when we set forth this goal of making this infrastructure. So really, really pleased that we're able to help you in this area, and really pleased to learn more about how we can help you moving forward.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, William, and a big, thank you to Chainlink and everything that you guys are doing. It simply wouldn't be possible to do what we're doing and to build the frameworks and the machine that we have if it wasn't for the technology that you guys have developed at Chainlink. So we're extremely excited to be able to bring more things into the ecosystem and to work alongside you guys.
Cheers. Thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you, William.